All right, before I get to my next guest, Sue Wieger, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Positive Vibes Golf. Check them out online at positivevibesgolf.com and follow them on Twitter at pvibesgolf. Their head covers and putter covers are a unique way to keep your mind focused on positive thoughts and a great on-course training aid as well to stay positive and, happy images in your mind. Again, you'll see what I'm talking about when you go on their website or you check them out on Twitter. Again, positivevibesgolf.com. And this segment of the show is sponsored by our friends over at 2 Under. I want to remind you about our friends over at 2 Under, men's performance briefs, the unofficial underwear of the PGA Tour. Worn by PGA Tour players like Ricky Fowler, David Toms, Jerry Kelly, William McGirt, Jason Kokrak, and Matt Everett, to name just a few. Your buddies are going to think you're a stud if they're even seeing you in your underwear, which is another story. And your girlfriend or wife is going to love the side effects, a visibly enhanced profile. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management. It separates a man's most valuable assets from bodily contact to reduce unwanted skin-on-skin contact, providing less chafing, more control, and an altogether more luxurious feel. Start every round 2 Under by wearing the coolest performance briefs on the market. Use code ONTHET20 to save 20% off your order at 2under.com. And that's the number 2, UNDR.com. All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is Sue Wieger. And let me give you a little bit of background on Sue. She is the owner of her own golf instruction academy and has been so for the last 20 plus years, and the executive director of Lifetime Golf Connections. She is the director of education of yoga for golfers as well. She is the author of a wonderful book, Golf, The Last 6 Inches, Change Your Brain, Change Your Game. And you guys know how much we talk about the mental side of the game. Well, Sue is an expert at that, and I'm very honored she is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Sue, thanks for coming back on the show.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me.
So, Sue, I want to start by going back and reminding our listeners about how you got started in the game, because it's been a minute since you were on the show, and you've got a pretty unique story. Take us through how, you got involved in the game of golf, and then really from out of nowhere, as I recall.
That is true. I was a multi-sport athlete growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, and didn't know golf. My brothers played a little bit here and there, but believe me, when I found out that they were playing, I'm like, oh, that's just kind of a boring sport, because I was playing everything else: volleyball, basketball, softball, and tennis, and enjoyed doing that through my college first 2 years, and then I eliminated a couple of sports because, as you know, as a college athlete, you just can't do 4 sports, and try to keep your grades up. It's pretty difficult. So I was very competitive in basketball and softball, and my senior year, I was waiting to graduate. Well, I already graduated from college, and I was just waiting for my teaching position back in Omaha to start in coaching basketball, and I got hurt in playing competitive softball, and I was a lifeguard at the time and just kind of hanging out waiting for my teaching job to start. And one of my college roommates called me up and said, "Hey, come work for me." And she goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just being a lifeguard." And she goes, "Well, come right down by the golf course. I need somebody to work." And I said, "Well, I don't play golf." And she goes, "You don't have to play golf." She goes, just be my beer cart girl." And I did not know what that was because I was not involved in golf at the time. So I said, "Well, is it an outside job?" She said, "Yes. You just get to drive around in a golf cart and serve, drinks and snacks to golfers." I said, "Oh, I could do that. That's not difficult." So I started just watching players playing. Oh, so this is what my brothers do. You hit it from A to B. And I got curious. And so I went down and lost and found and picked up some clubs and picked up a good old bullseye putter. And to this day, I still have that bullseye putter, and I still play with it because it's just a phenomenal putter in my mind anyway. And I started playing, and I just fell in love with it. And I stayed in Nebraska for 6 more years and teaching. Started as an amateur, and so my first amateur tournament I played, and I shot 84, 88, and I thought that was terrible. I thought it was terrible because I was a competitive athlete thinking I should be able to just shoot par right away. So I struggled with that in the mindset in the beginning. but everybody was like, wow, you're really good. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You know, it's just your perception, your expectations. And so I just fell in love with it and played in state tournaments and finally got into the championship flights. And then I thought, and I kept going back to every summer for those 6 years. I enjoyed going back to the golf course. And so instead of being a beer car girl, I was kind of an assistant, you know, golf professional. And I just enjoyed being around it and starting learning the game, you know, from scratch. I never really had an instructor, and the other athletic sports just definitely transferred over into my golf game. And then I turned professional at the age of 30, which is really, really late. I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, if I don't turn professional now, I'll never do it. And I moved from Omaha to Charlotte, North Carolina, and a great golf professional named David Bako, and you know, took me on as a, what do you want to call it, as a non-golfer or a golfer that was not in the industry, but I had a college degree in education. And he said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so I went down to Charlotte and started my career and played the mini tours back in the early 90s, back in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida area. But at that time, there was really not much opportunity really in regards to mini tour players for females. So I went the PGA route and went to the Business School 1, Business School 2, and took me about three, I think it was 4 times before I passed my player's ability test for the PGA, because back then we pretty much had to play from the same distances as the men. They just gave us about a 5-stroke differential. So it was pretty difficult back then, but now it's changed and it's a lot better. And I just didn't enjoy, you know, touring because there was just no money in it, and you know, you had to make a living. And so I said, well, I'll just fall back into teaching, and I love teaching. And I moved from Charlotte, North Carolina to Phoenix, Arizona, and like a couple of years later, and started working for John Jacobs Golf Schools and worked for them for about 3 years. And then I started my own business in basically 1999, and the rest of it is history. So I'm blessed to be able to do what I love to do.
So there's a lot there that I want to get into at a deeper level, but I got to start with a bullseye putter. Are you really still using a bullseye putter? I
am. I love it. I have a super stroke putting grip on it, but everything else is the same. I absolutely. Believe me.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I play in a pro-am with Betsy King, and we both laugh because she's still using her bullseye putter to this day. Yes, she is. Yep. Next time you see her, talk to her. But yeah, she's still using hers, and we both laughed. And I told her the story behind my putter, and she just laughed. And it's just. But yes, it's true. I absolutely love it. It's got the sweet spot that you can ever imagine.
Indeed.
What's funny was when I pull it out, people are like, "What is that?" Because a lot of people don't even know what it is. And when they find out what it is, I'm like, that should be up on the wall. That shouldn't be in your bag. It should be hanging on the wall. And I'm like, no.
That's great. One of the other things that you mentioned, Sue, was transferable athletic skills. I mean, we're in a time when, particularly junior players, right, are focused on one sport. They're in travel baseball. They're in track all year round. They're playing basketball all year round. You are such a well-rounded athlete. You mentioned you played volleyball, basketball, softball, tennis, and then ultimately over to golf. Talk about how those athletic skills and the ability to play all of those sports helped you be a better golfer.
Well, the first thing is just you think about the 4 different sports: volleyball, basketball, softball, tennis. Softball and tennis are rotational sports, so that definitely transferred. The basketball and the volleyball really, I think, in regards to teaching people about balance, teaching, motor skills, moving, because golf, people think golf is a stationary sport. It's not. As you know, it's a very dynamic, explosive sport. And, especially with our juniors today, as you're right, there's a lot of people that just put people in a box and say, okay, we're only going to do this. And most juniors that come to me don't have the motor skills because the physical education and the opportunity for them to learn motor skills are not there in schools anymore. And so it's a shame, but I see it as a disservice what's going on, in our education system for sure, especially coming to juniors coming to my lesson tee that, I have 4 and 5-year-olds that parents want to get into the game, which I absolutely love. However, their motor skills aren't ready. So what I do is we have fun. I have soccer balls. We have softballs and baseballs and bats and wiffle bats. And we have lots of things that we do to help them learn motor skills. And then we incorporate that into golf. And one of my favorite drills that I should say games, because it's really not even a drill, is, we have sword fights with noodles with my little kids, because it teaches them, they put 2 hands on it and we just fight like you're having a sword fight, because it teaches them balance, it teaches them rotation. And the fun little things that when we, talk about transfer of weight, we talk about, squishing the bug, we talk their language and such, like a handshake grip. We don't talk about grips. I'm like, oh, how would you, shake my hand? We have fun little, different terminology for the juniors. But as far as motor skills, I tell all my parents, get those kids into as much as they can. Play different sports. Please do not let them just play golf, because they're not strong enough. They don't have the good balance, the coordination, the rotation yet. So I just tell everybody my story. It makes so much sense to have, multi-sport background and experience, because the body, as you all know, juniors, they're all developing. So we need to teach them motor function, because, just look at our U.S. major champion, Gary Woodland. He's a prime example. He played all the sports going up, played basketball all the way through college. And, he's been, the late bloomer coming out into the PGA Tour. I just love his story. I love him as a human being, love his story. And that's just another example. And it's just like, please highlight that, that he was a multi-sport athlete coming into before he joined the tour.
And Sue, we talk a lot on this show about the mental side of the game. In your book, again, which is titled Golf, The Last 6 Inches, Change Your Brain, Change Your Game. And it's a great book to help us think better and to think differently about the game of golf. Talk about some of the things, some of the concepts in there from a mental approach that we should be doing differently or better.
Yeah, the first thing is the first chapter in my book is why. Why do you want to play golf? Because people play for different reasons. And, if they're playing for the right reasons, their emotional intelligence is kind of tagged to that. And what I mean by that is when you have a thought, you have a thought that comes in of why you want to play. I have people that come up to my lesson tee, and they're older ladies, and I ask them why they want to play. And they say, well, my husband played, I never see him. And I said, well, let's talk about that, because that's not a really good reason to play golf in that sense, because, what's it going to be in it for you? And for example, the other thing is we talk about in the sense that when people come up to lesson tee and I say, well, that's the first question, why do you want to play? And everybody has different reasons. Some juniors want to play, they want to get a college scholarship, or they want to play competitive, or they want to play with their girlfriends or their boyfriends, or whatever it may be. Why do you think the why is so important, Chris? Why do you think the why is so important?
So for me, the why that I like to play golf, it's for the camaraderie with my buddies. It's a competitive piece, and we're out there trying to beat each other's brains out. But along the way, it's the place that we have so much fun together, needling each other and getting to hang out and spend time together. It's sort of wrapping all that together between the competition and the camaraderie. That's why I love the game.
Yeah, it's about the relationships that you have with others, and that's your why. And that's important, because how does that, if one of the questions I ask when I'm doing a lot of my retreats and workshops is, what if golf was taken away from you? What if all of a sudden if they just closed all the golf courses and golf was not around anymore? What would you miss most? And you probably much just answered it. And for you,
I
what would
the opportunity Yeah, so I'd miss the opportunity to do those things with my friends, and just being a fan of the game, boy, I sure would miss watching the guys out on tour and the ladies out on the LPGA tour and the things that they're able to do, because I marvel at them for how easy they make the game seem and that sort of thing. But it would be a big hole in my life if it wasn't there.
Right. And that's why we kind of dig deep down into the whys, in the sense, because if you remember why you play on the days that you don't play well, you'll still enjoy the game. And that's, people go, oh, I never really thought about it that way. And,
yeah,
if you cherish it, that, and it's simple in thought, but in the sense that, if you just remember why you play, and when you're standing over the golf ball and remember why I'm just out here to have fun with my buddies, you'll actually play better because your authentic self shows up more. And when your authentic self shows up, your skill sets come out, because you're not self-sabotaging. You're not you're not stepping in the way of yourself. And that's what self-sabotage is all about. So a lot of people many of my reviews that come back, and or people will call me and say, I just absolutely love the first chapter of your book because it's about the why. And then they just get like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So,
yeah,
that's the first thing. And then we just talk about your thoughts create emotions, and your emotions create your actions and your decisions. And that cycle of thoughts, emotions, and actions, the only thing that you can control is yourself, meaning the only thing that you can control is your thoughts. And we dig deeper in regards to, where's your thoughts coming from? Your thoughts are coming from your own self-belief. And then we dig deeper a little bit into understanding your subconscious is where your self-worth is and where your self-beliefs are, because of all the conditioning that you've had in your life and everything that you've anchored throughout your life, especially when you were a child. From the time that you were born to 7 years old, they're just sponges. Children are just sponges between those years. And, self-confidence and self-worth and self-image is buried in your subconscious. And those first 7 years come from those experiences that we have in life. So if you were an abused child, you're going to have a lot of fear and a lot of guilt and a lot of other things that come up. And those emotions have a lot to do with how you're going to react or respond to different situations. And so we just talk about that relationship. And but the nice thing is that the first thing that you can control is your thought. And we're wired for fight or flight. We're wired for negativity. So we have to, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but with negative thoughts, for one negative thought, you have to have 5 positive thoughts to neutralize it. That's what neuroscience studies tell us. 5 to 1. So can you imagine that, Chris?
Wow. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
And when you talk about negative thoughts, right, and you're right, on the golf course is a place where those things are flying into our brains, all the time. How do we do a better job of doing that? Keeping the 5 to 1 ratio, or to keep those negative thoughts, because nothing scares me more than having to hit a bunker shot, because I get in there and the first thing I think of is don't hit it fat, don't scull it across the green. I don't think, hey, I could make this shot. That's one of the good things that my friend Debbie O'Connell always tells me, hey, every time you step up to the ball, you should think, hey, this could go in. But for most of us, it's all the bad things that could happen. I could, we're out in the fairway, I could hit this in the trees, or I might top it, or I might hit it fat. How do we do a better job of not thinking that and thinking more positively?
I think that it's easy in theory, but not easy. And the first thing is just self-awareness. It's like, what are you thinking about? Well, I'm thinking about missing it. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? Most people are focused on what not to do, and we need to train our brain to do what we want it to do instead of the not. So,
right.
What I teach was focus, language, and physiology. So focus number 1 is focus on what you want. And in order to focus on what you want, your self-talk has to change. So if you understand that self-talk and that internal voice saying, I'm afraid I'm going to leave it in the bunker, or I'm afraid to, hit it over the green, or I'm afraid, blah, 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 whatever the story is. We have to just start listening and become very self-aware of what our thoughts are. And then we just shift it, and we have to say, okay, well, what do I want? And it's the same thing on the first tee. If you're standing on the first tee and your focus is on the water on the right and the sand bunker on the left, there's no way. Well, you could, execute a good shot, but the brain's going to either manipulate away from either the water or the sand bunker, and we're going to manipulate that swing. And our authentic self and our authentic skill set's not going to show up. So that's the first thing is we got to just be very well aware of our self-talk and focus on what you want. The second part is, like I said, language, which is our self-talk. What are you saying? In the sense that, do you have a belief system that always comes out negative in the bunker? It sounds like you do. We need to change that, Chris.
Indeed. I need your help with the bunker shots and the 3 to 5 foot knee knockers. How do I get my brain to do the right thing? Help me with that.
Right. Okay. Like I said, the first thing we're going to teach you is to focus on the right thing. Focus on what you want. What do you want? And if you just said that,
yes.
I mean, like, okay, if you're on the bunker and you say, I just want to get out, that's okay, because that's the first level. It's just like, with a beginner, what's the first thing you want them to do is just to get out. And then if they're like, oh, I have some success and I just want to get out. I just want to get out. So, like, if you were standing in the bunker and you were just talking to yourself and saying, I'm just going to get out. I'm just going to get out. Literally in that language. And then your physiology, meaning your body, believes it. So think about another situation what are you really good at in golf, Chris? It's the first thing comes to your mind. Like, hey, I got this.
Yeah, no, I'm a pretty good chipper.
Okay. So what do you say when you're standing over chipping? Chip shots. What do you notice?
Yeah, I guess what's going through my mind is I'm going to hit this close. I'm going to get this close.
That's right. Yeah. So you have a belief system. You're like, oh, I've got this, or I'm going to hit this close. Okay.
Yeah.
And how does your body feel when you're standing over a chipping shot and when you're talking about that?
Yeah. I guess I'm pretty relaxed over that shot. Yeah. You're relaxed.
Okay. So that's your physiology. That's what we mean by your body. And your language is like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to hit this close. Okay. Your focus is on what?
On hitting the ball close. On the ball position and where the pin is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like you've got your focus is on what you want to do. There's nothing saying that you're not focused on the not. You're focused on what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So we just train that in those three things, focus, language, and physiology in your pre-shot routine. And if you're standing over a ball and you have out of those three, if something comes up negative, we get out of it. You have to train pre-shot routine and your thoughts and your emotions, just like you train your putting mechanics. But most people do not train that. What does most people do when they want to get better is they go to the driving range and work on their full swing, or they'll go to the putting green and work on putting, but they're not working on their mental state of it. They're just standing over there working on mechanics.
No, I mean, as you mentioned, Sue, the idea of getting out of it. So when we've had a poor shot, and it's going to happen every round, right? We're going to have a poor swing. Yep. We might have a bad hole. How do you get out of that negative mindset, and not continue to beat yourself up and leave it in the past, so that when you go on to the next tee and play from there, that you don't let that carry over into the next several holes?
Yeah, we teach our players how to close the shot, just like you close the door. It's an anchor, and it's a physical anchor usually. You'll see some tour players take the glove off between the shots. That's an anchor of closing the shot. It's like, okay, I'm done with it. I'm going to take my glove off. I'm going to walk to the next shot, and I start over, and I'm going to open up a new door. It's a whole new shot. You hear all the time, you got to play one shot at a time. Well, you cannot play one shot at a time if you carry the old shot with you. So my juniors, I teach them how to flush the toilet. You know, what I mean by that is they literally, once they don't like the shot, I teach them to go just take a little step behind and pretend like they're flushing something. And they love it because once they flush it, it's gone. And now they can move on. You know,
right.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. People will when you anchor, that's why we have to teach our players how to anchor good shots. Because what does most people focus on after the round? Think about that. What most people focus on and talk about is after the round.
Oh,
it's usually the negative.
It's the bad hole. Yeah, If I didn't do that, if I had done this, then this would have been different. You're right. We bring that with us. Yeah,
that's that focus of the knots. Okay. And if you're throwing that into your subconscious and you're talking about it and you're emotionalizing it, which means the higher level of emotion you give to a result or a thought, the more that's going to anchor in your subconscious. So if you are filling up this, let's say there's an empty glass and that's the bottom of the glass is your subconscious, and you keep putting in negative thoughts into that glass over and over and over again, what are you going to keep getting? Yeah, you're going to keep getting that same thing. So we teach our players how to anchor it differently, and that's a post-shot routine. And literally, there is a post-shot routine because you have to teach people to okay, that shot's over. Whether or not it was good or bad, the shot's over, and we're gonna move on. But we also teach our players that when you hit a good shot, let's celebrate it. What are you going to do? You're going to emotionalize it. You're going to neutralize it. Because some people are a little bit different the way they anchor. And that's what's so personal about golf is pre-shot and post-shots are personal. They're individualized. It's your creative process in regards to a post or a pre-shot routine and a post-shot routine. You get to be creative with your player and okay, so how do you want to close a shot? What do you want to do physically to change the state and let go of that shot? Take the glove off. Maybe go over there and tap your bag with the club that tap means that shot's gone. Or put the club in your golf bag, that shot's gone. Take your glove off, flush the toilet, whatever it may be. But we have to teach
That's right.
We really have to teach them to close the shot. It's over. You can't do anything about it. And the best players and as you know, the best players are the ones that have the best of, what do I want to say? They're the master of doing that is they can let it go. They're not bringing it on and staying. They're just really good at staying in the present, not thinking about their score, not thinking about the last shot or not even thinking about the front nine versus the back nine. That's the difficulty in regards to where I think people just don't train. They don't train their brains. They're training their mechanics over and over and over and over again. But as you know, golf is a dynamic sport, and every shot's different. Therefore, we have to train our brain to start over because it's different. It's not, as you know, it's not a tennis court where the dimensions are the same and the racket's the same and the ball's the same. Everything's different. So we have to be a master of I'm sure you've heard this with Vision 54, but a master of variability. The variables in golf are just enormous. And we just have to be the master of that. But we have to train it. And most people don't train that. They just train mechanics. And that's where they have a difficult time figuring out, what happened? What happened with that shot? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, right. Well, Sue, before we let you go, let our listeners know now that you've wet their whistle and everyone needs to get a copy of your book. Talk about how they can do that and then follow you both online and on social media as well.
Yeah, you can find my book, Golf, The Last 6 Inches, Change Your Brain, Change Your Game. It's on Amazon. It's still up there in the really nice rankings, so it's easy to find. You can find me at Sue Wieger, which is WIEGER, golf.com. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is Sue Wieger Golf Academy. And you can look me up through there. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and just enjoying the heat these days. But I travel around and do workshops based on change your brain, change your game. Matter of fact, I'm actually in Nebraska this week doing some workshops and working with some clients. And so if you've got a group that wants to come on down to Scottsdale and in the winter when it's beautiful out, just contact me and we'll put a program together for you.
Well, Sue, thank you so much for coming back and being a part of the show again tonight. It's been great catching back up with you and having you here. I hope you'll come back and keep us up to date with all the great things you're doing, because a lot of what you said I know resonated with me, and I'm sure with all of our listeners as well. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks, Chris. Absolutely, anytime. And I hope to see you. Now, where are you based out of, Chris?
You're based out of Atlanta.
Out of Atlanta. Okay.
I'm in Atlanta. Yep.
Well, hopefully we'll play some golf one day down there.
I hope so too. Thank you so much. Take care, Sue.
Okay.
All the best to you and your family.
Thanks, Chris. Have a great one.
You too, Sue. Thanks. That's Sue Wieger, Wieger, SueWiegerGolf.com. And again, the book is absolutely fantastic, folks. And there's a couple of great things that she talked about, sort of bookending the conversation. Find your why, right? Why do you like the game? That's something that our good friend Cindy Miller has talked about as well. But why do you want to play? Why are you playing the game, right? And that's a great way to kind of get yourself launched into playing the game better. And then again, the name of the book is Golf, The Last 6 Inches, Change Your Brain, Change Your Game. And all that negative self-talk, and we talk about that on the show here all the time. But we got to find ways to keep that from creeping in. And even though we talk about it all the time, it's still something that bothers me. Like I say, don't get me in a bunker. Don't give me a 3 to 5 footer, because that's where the negative thoughts start creeping in. And I've got to train my brain to do it differently. And like Sue said, what do you want to happen, right? That's the thing we've got to figure out and say to ourselves, what do you want to happen? And I love what she said in there towards the end. Can't play one hole at a time if you bring the last hole with you. And that's something we've all got to do as well, is flush that toilet and leave it back there and then move on to the next great shot that we're going to hit. So great having Sue as part of the show. Looking forward to having her back on again real soon. All right, folks, time for me to put a bow on this edition of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks go out to David Abeles, Andy Lano II, and Sue Wieger for joining me. And folks, thank you so much for being with us again tonight. Please check out our website, nextonthetee.net. On there, you'll be able to stay up to date with our guest schedule, see who we've got coming up, and be a part of the show. I also want to mention our friends over at LaunchpadDM.com. Folks, go over to LaunchpadDM.com. We're featured. Next on the Tee is featured right there on their homepage. Give us a like, give us a click on there, and subscribe to the show. We really appreciate that and your support for doing that. You can also find the show on great sites like Podbean and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audio Boom, and Player.fm as well. So, folks, thank you so much for being a part of the show again with this week. And like I say, we can't thank you enough for making us a part of your golfing content. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
You've been listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA pros and top instructors and media members go to tell their stories. Join us the same time every Tuesday to hear more stories about the game we love from people who love sharing those stories with you. It's all about the great game of golf. It's all about